Welcome to the 57th ever BC's Pro Wrestling Amplified podcast. Thank you to every single one of you that have been around since week number 1, podcast 1, when I didn't have a clue what I was really doing. I just knew I wanted 1 hour at least every week to just talk about anything and everything pro wrestling. Any topic, many topics. Whatever came to my dome piece, I wanted to talk about it. And most weeks, it's nearly, if not eclipsing, an hour long. Which is why I put it in podcast format, in audio format, so you guys can just listen to it at the gym, taking a jog, at work, doing the dishes, taking care of the kids. Whatever you gotta do, you got BC on in the background, because I understand these are longer than the usual content I put out. But you guys stuck with me from week 1. You said, hey, it's a crazy idea, BC, but fuck it. We're down. We'll take the ride with you. And you guys have been taking that ride since week 1. I appreciate it. And here we are at 57 episodes already. And speaking of taking a ride, I am in the car today. Usually I'm getting really amplified when I'm in the car and traveling. I'm going to try not to be so amplified in this one though, because again, this could go near an hour's long in length. So I want to keep pace, but also at the same time, I should say, I want to do something cool and talk about the championships in WWE. I want that to be a main focal point and story in this week's podcast, and for good reason. Because you guys always hear me talk about the championships no longer feeling like they're championships. You guys always hear me talk about WWE titles and talking about how they seem like jokes now. They're toys. They're not prestigious. But why do I feel that way? And a lot of younger fans don't really know what I'm talking about, because this is all they know. All they know is championships changing hands every month during the middle of Raw and SmackDown. Literally, most of the time in the middle of the show, not even in the main event. That's all younger fans know. But you see, when I was growing up and way before my time even, champions were actual champions. And championship reigns, they were long. If you really did your history and your research, you would know that champions back in the day, they didn't hold it for only months. Some of those individuals held those titles for years. If you look up Bob Backlund's history, or Bruno Sammartino, or even Hulk Hogan, you would see years, not months. And that's the shit that was around before my time, and when I started really getting into pro wrestling. But at the very least, champions were champions for months and months. It really made the belt prestigious. It made the champion look and feel like an actual champion. Nowadays, every month, the title is switching hands, it seems. And again, it's in the middle of these shows, not even at pay-per-views, but in the middle of Raw and SmackDown. So if the champions aren't looking like champions because they're dropping the title every month, again, that's what it seems, and if the championship belts are not staying on an individual for a long period of time, then are they really prestigious? Nobody can hold on to them. Everybody's basically on a merry-go-round. Everybody gets a turn, a chance with the title. That diminishes the championship's value. So what I've done is I've done my research and jumped into the history books a little deeper, just so you guys get a small taste of what I am talking about. Just so you guys see how asinine the booking is with Vince McMahon's champions and his championship title booking. And by the end of this vid, you're probably going to have your eyes rolled up to the back of your dome piece. You're probably going to want to put your dome piece through every cement wall you come across, because you're going to be dumbfounded how the old man in Stamford, Connecticut can book his superstars into this shitty booking. I've done my research for you guys, and you might be astounded, shocked, floored by some of what I found. I wasn't, because I knew I felt like this for a while now. But when I really documented this for this podcast, man, all of those horrible memories of these title changes, they came rushing back to me. So that's going to be the main story, guys. Before I even get into the WWE Championship history and storyline, and by the way, I only researched 2019 so I could A, prove a point to you guys, but B, make sure that this is just an hour-long video. If I went into 2018 and beforehand, we'd be here for weeks. I'm just giving you a small taste. 2019 alone for these championship straps. But before I jump into it, I want to talk about Sami Callihan. This is a big story this morning, and a lot of you guys want to know how I feel because it's something that pisses me off in pro wrestling, especially when pro wrestlers use the word fake to describe their profession. Sami Callihan, we know, he used the words, and let me find them if you don't mind. This is a quote from Sami Callihan when he's talking about the Wabaka virus that's going around. He uses the words, "more important than fake fighting in my underwear." What is the context that he was talking about? Should he have used those words? Is he panicking too much? Oh, do I have a lot to say about this? Number one, just so we have all our facts in order, let me describe the context in which this was used in. Now, I've been off social media for about a month now, and it's beautiful. I don't plan on jumping back into it anytime this week or the foreseeable future. So that's the case. But this was sent to me by several individuals. And apparently, Sami Callihan is flipping out about this, what we call Wabaka virus, right? I can't call it by its real name because the tube doesn't like that, and it'll take the video off of the channel, of the platform. So we have to call it the Wabaka. All right, that's all we're calling it. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's sweeping the world. Everybody's in fear. Everybody's in panic. I put up a vid yesterday, and I said, while all of us need to take this serious, the one thing we cannot do is panic, because that helps nobody. And in panic, in times of despair, in times of people feeling like the world is coming to an end, they will run out and they will grab all the surgical masks and the sanitizers and all the gloves that actual hospitals need, that actual elderly people need, nursing homes need, people that are older, people that have younger children, people need those things. But people that are just middle-aged, no compromised health issues, they're running out in panic and grabbing all these items. Even stockpiling toilet paper. They're really going to hunker down until what they conceive to be this thing is over, which could take months, years. And I said, we cannot panic. We have to take it serious, but please, guys, do not panic. So Sami Callihan apparently took to social media late last night, and he panicked. And he said, and I quote, "Fuck characters, fuck storylines. Our safety is the most important thing. Until this gets better, I'm not going to any wrestling shows. I beg the world to be as safe as possible in this extremely scary time. Let's join together like never before. We can get through this." Listen, if he stopped right there, I'm okay with that. If he stopped right there, I would be okay with that. He didn't need to say fuck characters and fuck storylines. You don't have to, degrade the business. But after that, he says our safety is the most important thing. Until this gets better, I'm not going to any wrestling shows. Okay, I'm sure the wrestling world isn't going to miss you if you don't go to a wrestling show. But then he seems pretty positive. I beg the world to be as safe as possible in this extremely scary time. Let's join together like never before. We can get through this. But then he goes into just a mass hysteria, I feel. And then he degrades the business in the process. He goes on in a whole nother paragraph, I guess, and says, "My family, my animals, myself is more important than fake fighting in my underwear. I'm sorry. I'm not going to show until this is contained. I hope everyone does the same. The world, our loves, is not worth it. First of all, why? You're more important than fake fighting in your underwear. This is what perturbs me. Professional wrestling is not fake fighting. It is pro wrestling. Fake fighting would be if somebody picked like the UFC, say MMA, right? They tried to do MMA, but it's all rigged. It's all fake. Because that's fighting, right? I don't know. I grew up in projects. And because of bad decisions when I was a teenager, I had to go to prison. So you could probably guess I've done a lot of fighting and I've seen a lot of fighting. But I'm guessing most of you did not grow up in projects. I'm guessing most of you have not been to prison. And that's awesome for both. But I'm guessing you have at least seen a fight or two, correct? Or maybe you've even been in a fight or two. Take my word for it. I've never did a figure four leg lock in a fight. I never saw somebody running around the projects because I was fighting someone. You know how word gets around. Oh my God, BC's fighting, blah, blah, blah. And they're knocking on doors and everybody's running out to the field or the basketball court to see the fight. I've never seen people rushing toward the basketball court and I have a sharpshooter on somebody. I'm usually not hitting somebody with a steel chair or power bombing them through tables. I don't know what kind of fighting that they're used to, but that's not how I fought. And I'm guessing that's not how you would be in a fight. So I never understood the concept fake fighting. It was always something that I had to defend as a wrestling fan, and most of us, as fans of pro wrestling, old-timers like myself, we know what I'm talking about, right? Younger fans, maybe not, because kayfabe is kind of gone and the fourth wall is broken down. So maybe today's fan doesn't care about the word fake. But for old-time fans like myself, you guys understand what I'm talking about because we grew up in a time where we always had to defend pro wrestling. The idiots, the schmucks, the people that weren't fans, they just said it's fake fighting. And we always had to defend it and say it's not actually fighting, though. So you can't fake something that it's not. And while it's choreographed, and it's absolutely storyline, and it's rehearsed a lot of the time, no question, to say it's fake is actually not true. Right? Because professional wrestling is unlike anything else in the world. There's nothing like pro wrestling, so it's actually the first of its kind. So it's not fake anything. I'm just breaking down the facts for you guys, if you guys want to get technical. And every time I do this, I always get the same schmuck that will always say, oh no, it's still fake, BC, stop it, it's fake. But it's actually not. If you really want to be smart about it and jump into the technicalities of it, it's not, because it's one of a kind. There's nothing like pro wrestling. And again, being a fan for decades, I've seen the injuries. I've seen people get paralyzed in the ring. I've seen people die in that ring. As we speak right now, I would say roughly, this is no joke, no exaggeration. I have roughly 15 to 20 friends right now traveling the world on the independent scene. Wrestling. I talk to them frequently. And I hear about their injuries, their rough times, what they're trying to do, the work that is being put into this. And to just have fans call it fake or fake fighting, that's degrading to my friends. And they've told me this. It's degrading to the old-time wrestlers who have fought this. I've seen it firsthand. And today's wrestler, today's fan, they don't care about any of that history. Kayfabe's all but gone, the fourth wall's broken down, and now they degrade their own business. Thankfully, not many. CM Punk likes to use the word that fake world when he went to MMA in the UFC. Right? He wanted to degrade the business, that fake world. But that was really it. Not many of these wrestlers today degrade their own business, shit on their product, shit on their business, shit on their industry. But Sami Callihan is in panic mode right now. Sami Callihan is flipping out. And in the process of just trying to say, hey, he could have left it at, hey, I don't feel right about this. I'm going to try to protect myself. I'm not going to appear in any wrestling shows for the foreseeable future. That's all he had to say. Even in character, he didn't have to shit on the business. But he goes and says, I'm more important than fake fighting in my underwear. Why was that needed, dude? Why did you have to shit on the fucking fake fighting in your underwear? That's all you see what you do? That's how you see yourself, dude? If you want to take a break, that's fine. You don't gotta shit on what brings in the food to your table. What allows you to do that? A local grocery, a ShopRite employee, if he doesn't feel safe or he wants to hunker down at home, he doesn't go on social media and say, I'm done with this apron and fake smiling. No, he says, you know what? I'm going to stay home from work until this blows over. Hopefully everyone stays safe. You don't got to shit on what you do, bro. Especially when you know how touchy of a subject this is to so many. Not just fans, by the way, but as I aforementioned, your fellow wrestlers, the old-timers that got in fist fights, not fake fighting, Sami Callihan, fist fights, because they were trying to protect this business from people going around and disrespecting it, calling it fake fighting. Again, I've been in so many fights growing up, and I've never powerbombed. I've never tombstone pile drived anybody. So I don't know what business Sami Callihan is in. That's never claimed to be fighting. It's professional wrestling. There's nothing like it. I never watched pro wrestling and thought I was watching two dudes fighting. It was pro wrestling. I was watching figure four leg locks, sharpshooters, arm bars, sleeper holds. How many sleeper holds do people do in a fist fight in the projects? In prison, I never walked out of my cell and saw somebody in a figure four leg lock. Come on, man, tap out. No, I'm gonna poke you in the eyes before I tap out. No, that's not fighting, bro. The fact that you just look at pro wrestling, anybody out there, if you're a fan, and I know many wrestlers watch this channel too, I know, fucking, I've even had so many tell me that, and I thank you, I appreciate it. So I ask fans and wrestlers alike that are listening to my words right now, if you look at what you do as just fake fighting, you should get out of the business. Because it's so much more than that. Or it just means you don't respect the business. There's a reason. There's a reason Sami Callihan did not make it in NXT. Or isn't in WWE, even AEW right now. There's a reason. The whole bat situation, remember that? The carelessness. Now he's losing, I believe, to Tessa Blanchard. I believe he's one of the individuals to lose to Tessa Blanchard. He's spitting on wrestlers now. There's a reason that Sami Callihan's career has taken the path that it's taken. The proof is in the pudding, is the old saying. There's a reason for all of this. I always thought of Sami Callihan as a tough, badass dude, along the lines of like a Mox. Not in the level of a Stone Cold, nowhere near that, but along the lines of a Mox. But damn! Slowly but surely as the years went on, man, my respect for him was lost. But when you say that this is just fake fighting in your underwear, and you panic like a bitch, at your age, you panic like a bitch, when this is a time where you, with a platform, need to be bringing people together. Take it seriously, but don't act like a paranoid Paulie. You're acting like a bitch boy Braden. talking about you're not showing up to any wrestling events in the future. Like anybody's gonna miss you, bro. And then a fan says, lighten up, dude. A fan actually responded, lighten up, dude. And Callihan responded, fuck you. Our world is panicking. I have food and water to last almost a year. Do you? Another fan responded to that, no, because we're not crazy. So Callihan admits that he's already like stockpiling food and water, probably sanitizer. He's probably the dude that has stockpiled toilet paper. He probably has masks and Lysol and Purells. That people that have actual compromised health and immune system problems and issues, they could use. Dude's a tough guy on TV, and then he runs like a bitch at the first sign of panic. He says the world is panicking. That doesn't mean you gotta, bro. Again, take this seriously. Do not panic! Is that so fucking hard to ask? Don't panic! And while you're at it, quit calling professional wrestling fake fighting. No fan that I know of, no wrestler that I have talked to, thinks or looks at what they do or are watching as fake fighting. We don't even look at it as fighting. Because nobody fights like that. You're not cool and you don't sound edgy by calling pro wrestling fake. Today's fan, a real younger fan today I've noticed, they think they're edgy when they use the word fake. You're not. You're a fucking cornball. You're stupid. You're a dipshit and you're a fuckwad. Cut your bullshit now. You're only making yourself look more stupid than anything or anyone else. All right, so now we'll move on to something that I can't say is any lighter of a topic for me because it still frustrates me to the point of no end. And that's WWE championships and how they're being utilized or misutilized, handled or mishandled. And what I wanted to do is some research for you guys. And I just went over the year 2019 just to give you guys a starting point. You can even go years even before that and find even so many more holes in the booking of these championships and these champions. The title reigns and the booking of all of it and how tragic it was. And it has been, and it still is. But I wanted to take the year 2019, just this past year, and really show you guys what I am talking about. So I did my research on every single championship. I'll try to go over as much as I can. I don't want this video to be, multi-hours long. But I want you guys to see where I am coming from when I talk about these titles being portrayed as toys now. They're jokes. They're just sideshow props. No longer are the champions feeling like champions. No longer are the championships prestigious. No longer do we see title reigns lasting many months at least. That's the only way you can build up a champion to be a legit champion. That's the only way a title can be prestigious, when it's not changing hands all the time. Let's start with the United States Championship. This is a championship that changed hands 9 times in 2019. Yes, I will repeat that for you guys. The United States Championship changed hands 9 times in 2019. Only 3 times at a pay-per-view. Because I'm not counting the Royal Rumble where Shinsuke Nakamura won it during the kickoff show. Oh, how prestigious is the United States Championship. We'll have it change hands on the kickoff show of the Royal Rumble. Oh, man. So I don't count that. Aside from that, Extreme Rules, Stomping Grounds, and Money in the Bank were the only other ones where the title changed hands at the pay-per-view. Other than that, the United States Championship changed hands 5 out of the 9 times on Raw and SmackDown. 1 time was even at a live event, which is the current reign of Andrade. That was won on December 26, 2019. 9 times in 2019. None of them had any luster, spectacle, or meaning behind them. 5 times they changed hands on Raw or SmackDown. 1 time was at a live event. 1 time was on the pre-show of the Royal Rumble. And only a couple times at a pay-per-view. Man, I remember when that belt was prestigious in the late 80s, early 90s. In fact, from March 23rd, 1985 to December 27th, 1994, in that 10-year span, the U.S. title changed hands 21 times total. Collectively! Think about that, guys. 21 times in 10 years. The U.S. title changed hands only 21 times in a 10-year frame. And in 2019 alone, it changed hands 9 times. And even cooler, during that 10-year period, there were several periods where wrestlers had to vacate their titles, and they were really prolonged to the champion. And what I mean by that is long periods of time were stifled in between the next champion and the previous. Everything was done right. Today, everything is done wrong. Man, I miss those original, though, when I was really getting into pro wrestling, those early days, I miss how that U.S. title was defended. And even before my time, the U.S. title was prestigious, man. And to see what the old man in Stanford did to it, that's why I say it's tragic. That's why I say, in a way, it's heartbreaking, man. Because I know what these titles could still be. I know how to build superstars and build champions to look and act and feel like real champions. But when you just treat them like a toy, treat them like a prop, that's how it's going to be portrayed to your audience. The Intercontinental Title. 7 times from 2019 till now. That's better than 9 times at least. Unfortunately, it's not better overall because the first half of 2019, literally from January to July, Finn Balor and Bobby Lashley just played hot potato with that damn thing. And needless to say, it did nothing for either of them. If you're being booked like champs and the belts are looked upon as nothing more than disposable toys, then everything you're doing becomes meaningless. Finally, on July 14th, 2019, Shinsuke Nakamura became IC title holder and ended Lashley and Balor's game of hot potato. We were hoping this was a great sign of things to come for both Shinsuke Nakamura and the Intercontinental Championship, but we should have known better. I mean, after all, just like Nakamura won the United States Championship on the kickoff show of the Royal Rumble, he also won the IC title the same way on the kickoff show of Extreme Rules. Nakamura held the title the rest of 2019, but you would have never known it because he was booked to be completely irrelevant, even with the title. He was seen 18 times on TV since winning the title, and 11 of those times were tag team or multi-person schmaz matches. Wouldn't make that shit up. That's how they booked him. After he won the title, 11 out of his 18 appearances, not including house shows, guys, 11 out of his 18 TV appearances, tag team or multi-person schmaz matches. And that's what I mean. If you don't book the individual like a champion, like he actually has a championship belt, nobody is going to look at him as such. And when he wasn't on TV, it's like he was irrelevant. He never had those big-time matches. They never pumped him up. They never made that belt meaningful. And again, this is all just 2019, guys. SmackDown Tag Team Championship. That changed hands 8 times in 2019. 8 times. I know the days of the Hart Foundation, Demolition, Road Warriors, and Harlem Heat are long gone, but 8 times? Can nobody hold this thing for 3 or 4 months at least? No one? Half of these title changes, literally half, 4 of them, were on SmackDown, not even at a pay-per-view. Is it too much to ask to just build up your tag division? Have a tag team hold those straps for 5 or 6 months. Build the shit out of them, and in the process, build up teams around them as legit future opponents and maybe even champions one day. But here's a crazy concept. Not every team has to become champions. In 2019, if you were a team, you became a champion. It was like a merry-go-round. Everybody gets a turn. The New Day, the Usos, the Revival, the Hardy Boys all became champs a couple of times. For some of them. Even odd teams like Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan or Shane McMahon and The Miz became champs. What? Why? Just because they formed a tag team? I mean, it's early in 2020. John Morrison just returned. Reunited with The Miz, and I'm not even joking or over-exaggerating. They're already champions. Let me repeat that. John Morrison just came back to WWE. Just a few weeks ago, he reunited with The Miz, and they're already tag team champions. And then you wonder why they're not prestigious, these championships. Then you wonder why we look at them as toys, like jokes, like sideshow props. Over on the Red brand, the Raw tag titles, it's the same bullshit. Since 2019 till now, 9 title changes. And 7 of those 9 were in the middle of Monday Night Raw. And one of them was on the WrestleMania kickoff show. So basically, 8 out of the 9 had literally no proper build or suspense. That is just unreal. 7 out of the 9 were in the middle of Monday Night Raw, and one of them was on the WrestleMania kickoff show. You can't make that shit up! The women's tag titles are perhaps even more of a sad story. For many reasons. Sasha and Bayley won those titles February 17th, 2019 at Elimination Chamber, and they truly, sincerely wanted to showcase tag team wrestling and make those titles prestigious. Unfortunately, Vince McMahon had other plans, and less than 2 months later at WrestleMania, they lost those belts to the Iconics. How well did that go, you ask? Well, they held the belts for 4 months. You'd think that'd be a good thing. But they only had a handful of defenses. And not once were they ever a meaningful talking point in the company. In fact, to this very day, the Iconics are nowhere to be found. Completely MIA. After a short stint with Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, Asuka and Kairi Sane ended up winning the championships. And just like Shinsuke Nakamura with the IC and US titles, we were hoping this was the start of something big for Asuka, Kairi, and those titles. Unfortunately, the reality is they only defended the titles 4 times in the last 5 months. Again, if no care is being put into the characters, the booking, and the titles, the audience will not care either. Just going over this research with you guys. It was bad enough when I was going over it the first time. Here I am talking about it with you guys, and if you could sense the level of frustration in me to think that Sasha and Bayley really wanted this to be something, and they were only giving less than 2 months, not even 2 months, less than 2 months with them, just to give them to the Iconics. And because Vince had no plan with the titles, he kept it on the Iconics for 4 months, but they didn't do anything with them. They were so irrelevant, they're still not even used today, the Iconics. Then they went to Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss for no reason when they should have went to Asuka and Kairi Sane at that point. But Vince could not resist putting it on one of his blonde bombshells. He wanted Alexa to have a championship. But at that time, with the talk of Rousey and Charlotte Flair obviously having championship, Carmella was still in the title picture. You had all this going on. Alexa Bliss could only get the tag title, but that was still a title to Vince, so hey, put it on Alexa. But if you guys go back to around that time, that's when Asuka and Kairi should have gotten them. There was no reason that Alexa and Nikki, who just formed together, should have gotten those championships. It didn't even make sense storyline-wise, if you guys remember. So then, after they realized their blunder, they then gave it to Asuka and Kairi. But by then, if you thought they didn't have a plan beforehand, they definitely didn't have a plan afterwards. Because even when they won the titles, which was, again, only because Rio and AEW ended up winning the first ever AEW Women's Championship. If Rio did not win that, Asuka and Kairi would not have the titles right now. I assure you of this. Because 4 days later, Vince McMahon finally put the titles onto Asuka and Kairi. 4 days after Rio won that AEW championship. So that tells you right there that he had no care about Asuka and Kairi. He just said, oh shit, wow, that's a big moment for AEW. We got to put titles on our Japan talent, and our Japanese talent. And such he did. But he had no plan. And then you look at the last 5 months, they've defended the championships only 4 times. Damn if you don't look at that as tragic. If not for the wrestling business, if not for the championships, for poor Asuka and Kairi. As far as the women's singles titles, on the surface, everything looks great, right? On paper, it looks beautiful. Becky has held the Raw title throughout the entire year of 2019 almost. But her booking made the title irrelevant. She only defended a handful of times from SummerSlam on. In the end of 2019 into 2020, she was overly protected to the point where her own fans were calling for the removal of the title from her. That's how much she was being protected the end of 2019 into 2020. Her own fans were starting to say, all right, this is getting stale. This is beyond boring. It's because they had nothing for Lynch's title defenses. She only defended a handful of times. There was a 2-month period she defended not once. So they finally got one side of the category, one side of the spectrum under control. They took a person, they took an individual, they took a wrestler, and they had him hold the belt for a long period of time. But then they didn't know what to do with her. Oh shit, we have to make her, she has to defend it? Oh, we don't have that type of plan in effect. We don't know about that. Let's just have her hold on to it. SmackDown Women's title is no better. 6 title changes in 2019. Hot potato between Charlotte and Bayley for the entire second half of 2019. In fact, Charlotte won the SmackDown Women's title 3 separate times in 2019 alone. Bayley's been champion since October 2019, but look how they've booked her since she's held the title. Sure, they have given her one of the highest winning percentages in all of WWE, over the 65% mark, which is really good. Again, that's one of the best in the company. But look at the big pay-per-view matches. And when you're a champion, those are the ones that matter. Survivor Series, she loses. Taps out to Shayna Baszler, which, by the way, that's when the overprotection of Becky Lynch began. Becky was nowhere to be found when Bayley, your champion, was tapping out to Shayna at Survivor Series. Vince saw Bayley as expendable from the beginning. Then Bayley loses at Starrcade. Then for the Royal Rumble, her big feud is with Lacey Evans. These missteps add up, and when they do, you have a lackluster title reign because no care or thought is being put into it. That's the issue. You go to the big titles, the heavyweight championships. Doing the research on this was a joke within itself, so we don't even have to jump into 2019. Let's just see where we are right now, and you tell me if these titles are a joke. Brock Lesnar is once again your champion. And somebody who's actually a Brock Lesnar fan like yours truly, because I am, and I know that he brings and what he brings to the business, a big fight feel, I get it. But the fact that you bring him into WWE every time to just get that championship, drop it at WrestleMania, when does it get to be redundant? This guy cannot hold the championship for the better part of every year if he's only going to show up once every couple months at best. The title will look like a joke. Back in the day, we had a President Jack Tunney was his name for WWE. His name was President Jack Tunney. And he would order that superstars defend every 30 days. It was a rule. I've seen Brock Lesnar go 3 fucking months without defending. 4 months, right? Because he didn't even defend at the Rumble. Oh my, I tell you, man. And on the other side of it, you have Goldberg as a champion. You know what? David Arquette winning the WCW Heavyweight Championship is more prestigious than Goldberg winning that championship at 53 years old over The Fiend Bray Wyatt. That's right, I just said that. Right now you're thinking, BC, you done fallen and bumped your head too many times. Did you just say you'd rather see David Arquette win the championship than Bill Goldberg over The Fiend? That's exactly what I said. Bill Goldberg had no business beating The Fiend at this juncture, at this stage in The Fiend's development. At Super Showdown, a Thursday afternoon where most people are at work or in school, and Bill Goldberg is beating The Fiend in just a couple of minutes. Bill Goldberg is your champion right now at 53 years old, defeating The Fiend Bray Wyatt, who's the hottest character in pro wrestling. And you're telling me that title's not a fucking joke. I'd laugh at that because that's the real joke. That's your WWE title history for 2019 till now. I wish I could give you one prestigious concept. One thing that I could latch onto. But I can't. Back in the day, man, a champion held that belt. And what it did to our psyche, what it did for our subconscious, because we were always taking inventory of the superstars, of the matches, of the booking. What it did is it built up their superstar prestige. It built up that character. And when they dropped it, it was a big moment. It was at a big pay-per-view, SummerSlam, WrestleMania, even the Rumble. It was a big moment, man. And in the process of building up your champion, they were building up other superstars. They were building them up through the mid-card or through other big matches. So when it came time for that champion to take on that number one contender, everybody needed to see the match. Nowadays, the old man in Stanford is so lazy, he doesn't give a shit, he doesn't care. So how he tries to build people up is he just puts the championship on them. And that's why you see so many title changes. He just puts a belt on them. And he says, all right, people will look at them as a champion now. He's a big deal. But then after that, he even gave up. And he takes people like Shinsuke, or any SmackDown Women's Champion like Asuka and Kairi. He takes their champions and he just puts them on kickoff shows. He doesn't even mention them sometimes. That whole Finn Balor and Bobby Lashley IC flip-flop hot potato saga for the entire first part of 2019, that was atrocious. It was doing nothing for Lashley and Balor. They were in obscurity while playing hot potato. I don't forget these things, guys. I remember how I felt during these moments, during these storylines, and I use that in air quotes, during these feuds, and I use that in air quotes. I don't forget. I'm not one of these sheep that the old man hopes is going to just forget every week. I remember this stuff. It's why I have a channel that has thousands of subs. People know I know what I'm talking about. People know that when they come to this channel, they know that they're going to get 100% research and factual truth being dropped on them left and right. I'm not just going to buy into what the old man is selling. Please, sir, can I have some more? It's not going to happen. I refuse. I'm going to do my research. I'm going to hold this company accountable for its actions or lack thereof. The booking of superstars in general is atrocious. The booking of the championship belts and the champions is absolutely just a tragedy. Anybody that looks at it any differently, unless you're Sami Callihan and it's just fake fighting. No, this is a profession. People get seriously injured in that ring, paralyzed, and even die. It is a profession that takes years to practice your craft if you really want to be good and protect your fellow superstar. There's a psychology that not even the acting world needs to know. And I know, I'm in the entertainment industry. Professional wrestling, there's nothing like it. So much goes into it. You have to respect it. You have to live and breathe it. It's a way of life. And when you're a fan like me, it's a big way of life for me as well. You look at where wrestling is today with the drop in numbers. People are no longer showing up to arenas. People are not buying the merchandise. The ratings are down. They've been for years. But when you ask why, the old man will say, well, it's a complex situation. It's a lot of little things coming together. He lies to you. The truth is, it is a lot of things. It's a lot of big things coming together. When you ask the question, why is everything down? The answer is sitting right in your lap. You stopped caring. You're no longer building larger than life superstars. You don't want anybody to become bigger than your company. Your championship belts, you've been made to look like a joke. They switch hands every month. Everybody gets the championships, it seems. Your champions are booked to look like fucking chumps and losers. And you wonder why care and interest has dropped over the years. Bro, if you're honestly asking yourself those questions and you don't have the answers that I just supplied you with, you're part of the problem of why this business is dragging. I hope in the future champions start being booked as champions. Championship straps absolutely start being utilized as actual championship titles. You can call them belts, that's what they are. You can call them straps, that's what they are. Call them championships, that's what they are. But I want them to be looked at as actual titles. It's not a lot to ask. Call them what you want, but book them as actual titles. Fuck, man. And that's the podcast for this week, the 57th ever BC's Pro Wrestling Amplified podcast. I thank you guys so much for joining me from minute one all the way to the final minute in this one, guys. The championship title situation for WWE anyway is a huge issue. It's a huge problem. And I just wanted to give you guys a small little scope, a small little example of why it's such a big problem. And the little things that we can actually do to start getting this back on track and putting it in the right direction. It's not rocket science. I just supplied you with the things we need to do and why we got to this point. Let's start changing things up in the pro wrestling world. And again, the Sami Callihan. Sorry that you look at what you do as just fake fighting in your underwear. Because as a fan, I look at what you do as much more than that, my friend. I hope that one day you can look in the mirror and start thinking more of yourself. Start having more self-respect. The Amplified Man. Think. Be. Live amplified.